In 1907, Henry Adams began handing around copies of his autobiography privately. Published in 1918, it became known as The Education of Henry Adams. Now, Henry Adams had access to the finest education of his day. He was educated at Harvard. He was then sent to Berlin to study with the best professors in Europe. And Adams, who, by the way, was the grandson of the great abolitionist and 6th President of the United States, speaking of founding fathers, as Tal mentioned, John Quincy Adams, who himself was the son of John Adams, the 2nd President of the United States. Adams was not kind to the education he received. Now, due respect to Harvard, which has come a long way in the last 100 years, more than 100 since his education was at the time of the Civil War. Adams believed that he was educated for the past at a time when the future was emerging very quickly. He was educated at the onset of the Second Industrial Revolution. And when he wrote this book in the beginning of the 20th century, he felt that the changes, the technological changes, the social changes, the changes in global communication of his day had failed to prepare him and his generation for the exigencies, for the challenges of being effective in the world of his day. So let's fast forward 100 years. We are again at a moment, and I'm going to get negative on you for a second, where education is stuck. Education isn't just stuck in the present. Education is decades behind the needs of our students. This isn't just my opinion. This is what employers are telling us. And this is what becomes quickly evident when we look at the mismatch between skills and experience on the one hand and the requirements of today's world on the other. The fact is, our world has changed just as dramatically as it did in Henry Adams's day. The entrepreneurial mindset is the answer to the problem that I have been describing. And it's not about starting a successful small business or a scalable enterprise. What every entrepreneur who succeeds knows is that he or she is forced to develop solutions, to derive solutions for emerging problems.
I mean, we are supposedly at the sort of threshold of Silicon Alley, tech entrepreneurship everywhere, co-working spaces everywhere, yet our students struggle with breaking into these environments. And what we've tried to do is really to think outside our curriculum box and to create these transitional environments that allow our students, that's our investment now, to seed themselves in these communities with the help of an ecosystem that we support ourselves.
As we move forward here with our models and our wish list, take a moment, please, everyone, and think about where we started, where we were asking, what does it mean to get education unstuck? And where we thought about the 8 core domains of Nifty's Entrepreneurial Mindset Index. Here, in both what Katie said and what Christoph has said, we have very different institutions at very different ages, but they're dealing with similar problems in how we take that mindset and give students not only the opportunity to, in the passive voice, have it inculcated in them, right? That's not going to work for entrepreneurship. As they've highlighted, how do we give a wider pool of students the capacity to set their own goals and the agency and the transitional environments to practice activating and actuating those goals? How do we look at the seemingly intractable problems that our government and our corporate bodies are failing to solve? And how do we look to entrepreneurs to solve those problems and treat them as the genesis for the solutions that are coming? Nick, with the project you described in Baltimore, right, with the Jones Falls, I mean, that's an example of this, but if we take it up a notch, right? And we say there's an island the size of Texas made of plastic bottles in the Pacific, or the refugees that have been at great risk crossing the Aegean in recent months. How do we challenge kids to think about those problems? Look, nobody saw Sputnik as an opportunity in the United States.
Right.
We saw it as a mortal threat. But it is by addressing these threats to our students that we can develop the skills to solve the problems they bring.